fantastic.
Bob Hawke had the very fast train. In the end, very much too expensive.
How many passengers per car?
A decade later, John Howard's own version of high-speed rail was similarly derailed.
You can't justify spending $1 to $2 billion to subsidise a rail track between Sydney and Canberra.
We are building and building.
And at the 2013 election, Kevin Rudd also got on board.
If we do not have world-class infrastructure, there is no future for the Australian economy.
With the regularity of a City Loop train, every decade or so the highly popular policy arrives at the station and invariably moves on down the line.
Good morning, how are you?
With the Prime Minister famous for his love of all things rail, today's headlines had tongues wagging again.
From the rail industry, we're delighted to see the debate continuing.
And the PM wasn't about to shut it down.
Look, as you know, we have a new cities and new approach to infrastructure. Obviously, there'll always be a big role for the government to make grants, to make direct investments.
Malcolm Turnbull is relying upon people having the memory of a goldfish. He comes up with ideas that are old, that have been progressed, that indeed his government and Tony Abbott's government have wound back and stopped.
The reality is stations like this one aren't about to be bustling with very fast train customers. One senior source told Lateline the government was a long way off doing anything on fast rail because the numbers still don't add up. But really, this isn't about very fast rail. The infrastructure debate the Prime Minister wants is much broader. He's been talking about a concept called value capture, and it's likely we'll hear a lot more of it before the election.
That's how railways were financed in the 19th century, actually. It's not actually a radical new plan at all. It's actually a sensible old plan that's been forgotten.
When new infrastructure projects are built, the value of surrounding property usually increases. For example, a new train station will make nearby apartments more desirable and improve their sale value. Value capture skims off some of that increased value and directs it back to the government so there's less upfront cost for other taxpayers.
Obviously, there's a pot of gold, but there's only so much there, so there needs to be all parties need to look at other innovative ways of funding these projects, and value capture is one amongst others.
Britain's Crossrail project is considered the gold standard in value capture infrastructure projects, but even it only managed to raise 35% of its cost from value capture.
That's probably as good as it's going to get. And in London, around half of it was funded by government grant funding. So I think for Australia, that's the absolute upper bound, I would have thought, 35%, and it may well be very much lower than that.
And though the concept may be simple enough, implementation can be anything but.
It is very hard to isolate the particular impact of a new rail line or even a new station, and it's likely to be quite contentious. That's not necessarily a reason not to do it, but I think it's important to recognise that this is not a simple solution and it may well be very hard and very contentious, and that's one reason why governments struggle to extract all that much value from these sorts of mechanisms.
That's all I need to do? Yeah, that's it. Okay, done. All right.
Still, for a government focused on improving cities and adamant about living within its means, value capture is an attractive proposition. It also enables the Prime Minister to show, unlike his predecessor, he's no enemy of urban rail. But it's unlikely to solve all of the government's infrastructure problems.
There's no magic pudding. In the end, it's either taxpayer funded or it's funded by users and beneficiaries.